Hey folks, welcome back. Today we are looking at the Radxa ZERO 3W, or however you pronounce that, because in another video this was requested quite a bit, and yeah, I ended up getting one, and on paper the specs look pretty good. So we're going to have a look at this. We're going to try out a few of the features that's included with it. My watch is going off for some reason I don't understand, and we might try modifying it slightly as well. First up though, I just want to say thanks to PCBWay as always for supporting this channel. You guys know they've been a great sponsor. They support it as much as you do. There's a link below to their website where you get $5 off your first order. You can get things like assembly service starting at $30, 10 prototype boards for $5, all sorts of cool stuff like that. And they make really good quality parts. So I've used them for some of my production. Most recently, I've now got these rulers. And let me just zoom in there because I think these turned out amazingly good. Look at that. So this is the 30cm matte black ruler, which I've got for sale in my shop now. And I did it in 15cm as well in purple. So you can get purple or black in 15cm or 30cm. And of course, you still get, with every order from the shop, I am still throwing in these free 10cm versions. So I'm now up to version 1.1. I've revised it a bit and they come in black or white. As you can see, bloody good quality. So thank you PCBWay for continuing to sponsor us. Definitely go check their stuff out. Also, if you weren't aware, I do have another channel. It's all cooking and cookware. So I do like Chinese fried rice the Australian way. I do steaks. I test out fry pans. I do a lot of induction cookers. So go check that out. And also check out my friend Annie's channel. If you're into anything to do with horses, I'll put a link to that below. She does a lot of equestrian stuff. She's a really lovely chick. Even just watch one of her videos to help her out. You know, the YouTube algorithm, it does stuff. So do that, like and subscribe, all those things that you're supposed to do. We'll get on with this now. So on paper, well, literally on paper, these specs are wrong. What it says on the back of the box is, for some reason, Wi-Fi 4 and Bluetooth 5. But if we go over here and go to the spec page, you can see, so it's an RK3566. That is actually the same. I can't believe I don't have one here. So that is the same as the LuckFox Core 3566. I've got these for sale on the shop, link to it below. I don't have the Radxas for sale. I've got tier 1 LuckFox agency, so I buy these direct, and they're also pretty bloody powerful. So same quad-core 1.6 GHz processor in this bad boy too. Plus we've got a ARM G52 CPU, up to 4 gig of, or 8 gig of LPDDR4 RAM. This one's the model with 2 gig, because that's enough for us to benchmark it. Onboard eMMC, so I definitely got that, but it does have the SD card slot as well. Let's actually have a proper look at it here. And it's that awesome form factor that we've seen a lot of. So if we get that nice and zoomed in, you can't actually see the Wi-Fi module, but it does say, and I've tested it, that it is a Wi-Fi AX, so Wi-Fi 6 with Bluetooth 5.4. Now with the antenna, you've got the onboard antenna here, but you've also got an external antenna, and you have to change that using rsetup. It's an overlay setting that changes which antennas you use. So just plugging something in there doesn't do anything. You can see there, that's the main processor. We've got our RAM, you've got your PMU, SD card slot, 4-lane MIPI CSI, which makes me super happy, and that's my onboard eMMC. You got your mask ROM button there for flashing it, which we'll see. Micro, I think it's mini or micro HDMI, whichever one that is, and then we've got 2 USB-C. So this is USB-C 3.0 in host or device mode, and sorry, no, just in host mode, and then USB 2.0 for power, and that's on the go, so host or device mode. Plus your normal Pi 2 headers here. So you can do quite a few different things with that. Now, it is good to be aware that these things do have some thermal rate limiting. So once they hit about 80 degrees, they will slow themselves down, and I don't want that to affect us. So I'm going to pause in a moment whilst I get the computer ready, and I'm just going to get a little heatsink and fan like this, and I'm just going to have to cut the corner off of it. Actually, I'll trim that corner off because it's not meant for this, but it's just hitting that USB-C port. So we'll trim this up and then we'll flash it so you can see how the flashing process works, because writing the image to the eMMC isn't hugely clear in their documentation. It took me a few goes, and then we'll boot it up and test it out a bit. So hold on a moment, folks. All right, so I took that corner off, and then I realized that it was also going to be touching some of that circuitry. So As sticky as it looks, I just kind of angled it down, and that should fit on there nicely. But we're not going to do that yet. We'll have a look at that shortly. First, let's plug this in and get it ready to flash. And the first thing that we need to do for that is grab a USB-C cable, plug it into this port here. And now when we plug it into the computer, we want to be holding this mask ROM button. This is important because that's what puts it into the Rockchip kind of mask ROM or bootloader mode. So holding that down, plug it in, and you just get that steady green light. It doesn't do anything else there. If we jump over to the computer though, have a quick look here. I've got Arcade DevTool. I've got the latest version. I know with some of the other products I had to use 2.8 point something, but 2.9.6 or one of the newer ones needs to be used for this. As best understand, you'll see why. You also want to go into the config and just change that from Chinese.ini to English.ini, that one there. Otherwise, you might not be able to find it. Apparently there is an option in here. Anyway, so you can see, found one mask ROM device. Now, if I power cycle this and it's not in mask ROM mode, it just says no devices found. If you definitely have it in mask ROM mode and it still says no devices found, it means you probably haven't installed the drivers for it. So there is the driver assistant. There's a link to that on the wiki along with these files that you need. So I'll put a link to that below, but you can always check in device manager and make sure that there's no unknown devices in here, and that is usually it. Now, first thing you need to do is go and pick the loader. So you can grab this loader, the 356X, from their website. The links are on the wiki. That goes in there, and then you go and pick your image. So we've got the Debian Bullseye XFCE image there, both at address 0, but you got to pick eMMC as the storage option here, and you have to tick write by address or it won't work. Now, if we go run, what it does is it pushes the download file across, and then it runs that download file, which listens for the rest of the file and writes that to the eMMC. And after that, it's going to tell us that it's done. It's going to reset it. But what we're going to do, first of all, is grab a screen so we can see what's going on. And we'll also grab a power meter so we can see how much power it's consuming. Now, in this mode as well, I believe it still will boot from SD. So if you've got an SD card with an image and you plug that in, it will boot from the SD card instead, because as I understand, the bootloader will always try to load the SD card first. So to see the output, I'm going to use this display. These I do actually have for sale on my website as well. I've got 2 of them left. It's a Luckfox 7-inch HD IPS touch display. Yes, it is IPS, and yes, it is bloody good quality. So they've got nice solder mask on the back here. You've got, it's designed for a mount like a Raspberry Pi, and it comes with adapters for these ports that fit perfectly. You can connect it with DSI as well if you wanted to. It comes with all the cables for that, but you can also have your touch input and your power through these. You don't have to use these interfaces. So really versatile, and for, you know, what are they, $70 or so? These are really, really good quality, and they come with legs and cables and all those sweet things that you need that we won't be using. So that will be our display. And I've also recently bought this just from eBay because I keep borrowing one for work, and this does all sorts. This is how we'll be measuring our power consumption. So whilst we wait for that image, which is at 44%, let's get this plugged in there. That's going to show us what's going on, and that display is not too bad. Now we'll grab this HDMI cable for this, and we're going to need this micro HDMI adapter to plug it into there. We're going to need a power source for the screen as well, but the issue I've got here is I want to power the screen without taking power from this, because I want to see the power consumption. I guess we can difference it. We'll just power off this anyway. Screen doesn't consume much power, so we can have our power going in there and the USB connection for the touch and power coming out there for the screen. So plug that in. Image is at 68%. What else are we gonna need? Not a huge amount. I'll grab the thermal camera. We'll have a look at its thermal properties and how hot it's getting. Now, it's important to be aware there are a few little caveats with this. So WPA3 isn't supported yet. It says that on their GitHub page. So if we jump over here, the GitHub page where they have their releases, which is excellent, does explain things really well. So it's got a link to the wiki. It explains what the four flavors are for. And if you go across to their releases, you can see here that they've added that, but currently doesn't support WPA3 at all. So my test Wi-Fi network doesn't have WPA3 turned on. It can use the external Wi-Fi antenna, but doesn't come with one. So far, my testing has shown this tiny onboard one is actually quite good. And it doesn't come with an FPC cable, and I know most of them don't, but it would be nice if it came with like at least an adapter or something to go from a 4-lane to a 2-lane connection, or vice versa, because I have this 4K camera. Now this has a 8 megapixel capable ISP in it, and this is 8 megapixels or 4K. However, this one, which I didn't realize, uses a different cable, so I can't connect that to that. It's the wrong sort. I did see if I've got an adapter cable for it, but unfortunately not. So this 4K camera, which is based on the IMX415, you have to use with the ROC 4 or ROC 5, and they've got another camera as shown on here, I think, or somewhere. They've got really good instructions. It's great. They list the camera connection, 4-lane, 22-pin CSI connector, and I believe it shows on the website. There we go. So they've got an 8 megapixel 219 camera that you can use with it. They should theoretically both work. You could easily modify the device tree to support it. So that's annoying, but it is what it is. And this 4K camera, I've got a dozen other things it will work with. What it also supports though, well, what I saw an overlay for that I'm going to try out is apparently one of these ENC28J60s. These have an overlay for Ethernet, and there is an Ethernet version of this, but there's an overlay that supports this. So I might try wiring one of these in, because I've got these for sale on the website too. These are, what was it? Yeah, SPI, but they are the Mac and the PHY and everything. And in theory, that should work. Similarly, I do have SPI Wi-Fi modules now as well, like these W600s, which are apparently fully supported by Linux, but this has Wi-Fi on board, so we don't have to worry about it. Now, I've wasted enough time. That image has written. We can see it's flashing, booting, doing its thing. So what we'll do now, we'll come back and we will plug that into there. And first up, let's just plug it in and see how much power it consumes. Oh, I also have to turn that on. Is it? No. Oh, no, it's me being dumb. I had it plugged in the wrong one because I was going to use another power source. There we go. So it's drawing 1.15 watts roughly. Oh, there we go. It must be doing something. We'll see that vary a bit as it's booting, of course. But I mean, that's pretty low for a quad core, 2 GB RAM, onboard eMMC, running your GPU, probably trying to do graphics output. I mean, it's less than 500 milliamps, which means you could run this off a standard USB plug. That's pretty bloody awesome. Now, we're also going to need keyboard and mouse with this. So I'll grab the keyboard and mouse that's powering the computer, and I'll use it like that. So we'll wait for this to hopefully finish booting. I assume that's finished booting. It's not the most stable power. Alright, we'll say 220 milliamps. Now we can plug in keyboard and mouse. Actually chews a bit, that's another 100 milliamps. We're close to it, alright. And now, how am I going to do this? What I can do, so I was just thinking really hard then. I'll just grab another USB cable out. USB-C, if I can find one in here. Oh, you know what? I was having a slow minute. I don't need USB-C, I can use A to C. So it's just going to be touch and power. So I'm going to grab that and plug it in under here. So there we go, you can see our power has jumped a bit more there. And lastly, plug in, this is getting a mess, isn't it? There we go, look at that. Now, can I get that away from the light slightly? Yeah. So that is bloody good quality, and the touch is working out of the box. Let's stick that under there. Now, Radxa. And what we'll do next is time how quickly it boots, because I'm very curious about that. Login's gone a little bit slow. I'm not too sure what the story is there. We'll jump over to one of these terminals. Radxa. Alright. There we go. So we've got a 5.10 kernel, as usual. We have our 2 gig of RAM there, and only 410 used. That's pretty good. eMMC, you can see is 16 gig, and the image has expanded to consume all of it. There's our 4 cores at 1.6 gigahertz. Now, 1.2 gigahertz, I think, sorry. Jeez, I've already forgotten. It says 1.6, that's right. So as soon as they hit 80 degrees, they will start throttling themselves. Now, did it have... It does have a gig of swap enabled as well out of the box. So that's pretty good. I can understand that, even though you know I have issues with swap. Now, something else worth knowing about as well is they don't have like Ambient config or Orange Pi config or Radxa config. They've just got rsetup, which is kind of their version of the same thing. So in here is where you've got all of your options to actually mess with it, such as, you know, how you want to use the ports on it, which is very handy. And actually, you can see, what's the thermal governor doing? All right, it's just the settings for it, so we don't need to worry about that yet. What you may want to look at, though, is the overlays. So it's just saying, hey, careful with overlays. Now, if we go and have a look at the ones that are included out of the box, you're going to see there's quite a few there. So you can enable overlays for the cameras, things like that. All that's really doing is remapping the connections, or like assigning the ITC or SPI connections that are otherwise available to GPOs to those services. And you can change, as we can see here, you can enable those two cameras, enable the external antenna, turn off the network interfaces, enable the on-the-go ports, and you've got a whole pile of other things you can enable here. So this is the bit I was really curious about, SPI3 M1 CS0. So I'm going to enable that, just out of curiosity. That's all I really need. There we go. On next boot, that's perfectly fine for me because we're going to reboot it. And yeah, you can see all the other basic settings that you might want to configure in here that are otherwise going to be set, you know, at a system level. Now, if we go back to terminal 7, we have got our interfaces here, and we can see good strong signal. Now, if we connect to this WPA2 network, if I can type in the box. Excellent. So now I'm going to shut it down. We want to boot back up with that new overlay. We also want to put that fan on before it gets too hot. We'll just have a look at what temperature it's doing out of the box. Just getting my old top-down thermal camera. This thing is bloody excellent. There we go. So, yeah, sitting at about 50 degrees, it's just starting to cool down pretty quickly. I'd say if we power cycle it, we're going to get pretty hot pretty quick. That PMU is really pumping out some heat. See that there? You see it does take 10 seconds before you start to get the HDMI output. So yeah, that temperature just jumped right up to 60 degrees already. We are definitely going to need to put some cooling on that. So let's do that. That boot was otherwise pretty quick. Just going to yank the power out so I don't short anything and try to get this on there nice and carefully. Oh, it's a mess, but it'll be right. Let's... Alright, I don't think I'm touching anything else there, and this is 5 volts, which is really handy because I can just plug it onto here and that should be off to the races. Yeah, that's not touching anything else. It is going to be drawing more power, of course, but that draws like 21 milliamps, so that on there. Where's the camera? That way around. Yeah, the hottest part now is that PMU. The chip is instantly down in the 40s again. Oh, you can't quite see it from there. Yeah, that's looking pretty good to me. That means it's not going to be thermally scaling itself back. So that little fan is going for it. You could probably also control the fan with PWM by using one of the other GPIOs. They don't put out much current, but as I said, this only draws about 21 milliamps, so you should be able, it should be able to source enough current from a GPIO that you can scale up or down. And there's most likely going to be settings in the kernel for that. So now that that's all booted up, it comes with Chromium built in. It comes with Firefox and Chromium out of the box. All right. See if we can actually get some YouTube going. Now this has a hardware encoder and decoder built into the G52 GPU. It can decode 4K 60 FPS and it can encode 1080p 60 FPS, I believe. I might have got that the wrong way around, but the documentation will tell you. It only does 1080p output over HDMI though, so I find that a little bit annoying because I'd absolutely love to have 4K output. I've got a 4K monitor here that I use. Oddly, I had this same problem with these before, where it just won't load some sites. My network connectivity is perfectly fine. DNS with a slight lag there, but timed out. That is, could be something in my router blocking it, but there shouldn't be. Right, if we just go shop.plati.ma. Yeah, it's behaving really weirdly. Networking is obviously working. This might be something to do with the Chromium config. Oh no, it's loading my shop really slowly. There we go. So, oh, that is, this thing is struggling. I'd say you probably really want to be using a different image. Like, what's it doing? Load's not too high. Like, load's only 2.77 and it's got 4 cores. It's not using all of its RAM. Like, everything's looking pretty good there. So I don't know why it's lagging so badly. Just in case it's a Chromium issue. Now, we know it's not because we can see how laggy this menu is. I'm going to put this down to the graphics driver. So one of the other caveats with this is the graphics drivers out the box only support OpenGL ES, not full OpenGL like most things, including this, now need. In the wiki, there is some information about changing over to the Panfrost drivers, which have full support. So I'm going to turn the camera off now, do that, and then we'll get back to it and we'll see what sort of a difference that actually made. Hold, please. Alright folks, this has been 4 hours now. I cannot get the Panfrost or the Panfork drivers to work. It seems to be something to do with Debian 11. There's some discussions in the GitHub repo about issues with the graphics drivers. And that's why the CLI build's not working, which doesn't make sense to me, maybe you understand. Now the cool thing is that it appears that the overlay for the ENC28J60 nearly works, but not quite. So it is connected. It does seem to initialize to some degree. Like when it boots up, I'll even show you actually if we just reboot this. You'll be able to see that LED there, which is just plugged into a little router I've got next to me. So it's off until essentially the network stack's loaded and that initializes it. And there you go. I just can't get it communicating. I've tried auto negotiation, 10 megabit, half duplex, 10 megabit, full duplex, and it doesn't come up. So I'm not sure if that's something I'm doing, but I'm going to assume that this does work, and it's just me not having used one in a very, very long time. Now, I did also scratch my screen. If you can tell, I didn't realize that you know, shouldn't be rubbed on concrete, my bad. And I ended up moving the fan to the 3.3 volt line over here instead, just to quieten it down a bit. Now, all in all, I think this 3W is a very capable device. It's got a lot of opportunity to be awesome. However, the Wi-Fi sucks really badly. I ended up having to use this USB network adapter because the Wi-Fi is just so damn slow. And it's not even the internal the internal antenna. I swapped to the other antenna, same issue. So the built-in Wi-Fi sucks, but I'm thinking that's driver or... Hey folks, we are back, and believe it or not, it's a week later. This little bastard here really got the best of me. So first and foremost, that SSD that I used to record to all my previous videos, I never deleted anything off it, and so eventually it got full, and that other recording just stopped. At the same time though, turns out the documentation for those Panfrost drivers is completely wrong. It's meant for a different chipset. So since then, they've of course updated the documentation and clarified that that doesn't work. And I've had to go on really mess around with this for a long time, using time that I don't even have. What this has resulted in though is I've made my own image now, and this image works very well. Now, this image doesn't have the fixed Wi-Fi. There is still Wi-Fi issues, and there is a link to the drivers to fix those. So ideally 2.4 gigahertz works perfectly, no WPA3. Actually, I think WPA3 might work fine here, but there is a link to the radxa firmware that fixes the Wi-Fi. I just haven't gotten around to it yet because I leave these little things on the 2.4 anyway. Now this ambient image that I've put together, I have on my GitHub. I've actually created a GitHub repo for all of these, and I've done the 3W and the 3A because they're very similar. And you can see here that I've actually got a 6.1 kernel. So if I go cat etc Debian version, this is based on Trixie. So this is kind of Debian 13, but I did Bookworm as well. So you got 6.1 or 5.10 with Trixie or Bookworm. And as you can already see, like these are running and responding a lot better. And if we go GL Mark II, you can see here, it's using the Panfrost drivers with a much newer version of Mesa. So this performs very well. And I've got the benchmarks for both Geekbench and GL Mark with those images there. Now the other thing that we wanted to look at, of course, is that it actually plays my videos. That's the last thing. So yeah, look, these are interesting devices, and I really do like them. I like Radxa and the hardware that they make. Unfortunately, in this case, the images really fall short, and so did the documentation, and that cost me a lot of time. Let's see if we can fix that brightness up there. Which is a real pain in the ass, but it allowed me to learn something new and create something that should hopefully help everyone else out. Now, I do recommend a little fan like I've got here. I've got that on the 3.3 volt, and I found in the benchmarks that having the fan on made a huge difference. Factory image with no fan all the way up to my custom image with a fan gave almost a 20% boost in performance. So I'd say if you can, stick one of those little fans on it. I've got some of them left for sale, and either roll your own image using their instructions, which is what I used, or grab one of my images. And as you can see here, they do actually work perfectly fine. The hardware encoding and decoding is a treat. It's a little bit laggy, either because of RAM or because of the I/O throughput. I'm not entirely sure. But this is a good device. This is much better than the Pi Zero as far as I'm concerned. This pees all over the Pi Zero. And that's a little bit confusing because now you're seeing Windows on the Linux device. And all the faults so far have been software related. So I cannot complain. It only costs a couple of bucks from online stores like Erase, and it's going to be really useful in my garden for everything that I do in my garden. All of my sensors, all of my solar controllers, all of the pump management, everything like that. So I would recommend this device through and through. It's been an awesome learning curve. I wouldn't recommend the software. I wouldn't recommend the documentation. I wouldn't recommend this for anyone that's not experienced. So I hope that teaches you something new. I hope you enjoyed this little journey. It made me want to put it through a wall, but I will use it in the end now that I've fixed the majority of the issues. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more of this sort of thing. If you want to see some behind the scenes, let me know. Next time I'll record a bit more of me screaming and shouting. And otherwise, don't forget to check out the links I put below for all of this, and leave a comment if you've got any curiosities or you hit any hurdles yourself, because I've probably solved them by now. So until then, folks, have a great weekend. Well, it's not a long weekend anymore, and I'll catch you next time. See ya.